Most people will never become unstoppable. Not because they lack talent, not because they lack opportunity, because they never understood what unstoppable actually requires. They started with the same energy as everyone else. And then life pushed back, and they stopped. Today, we're going to show you the psychological architecture that makes a person impossible to stop. And none of it will sound like anything you have heard before. So grab a coffee, because in this explainer, we're completely dismantling everything you thought you knew about high performance. We're literally rebuilding it from the ground up.
All right, first things first. We need to completely destroy the motivation myth right here, right now. People think unstoppable individuals are just perpetually motivated. Nope, not even close. They are disciplined. Think about it. Motivation is just an emotion, right? It's super fleeting. It only shows up when the conditions are absolutely perfect. You feel good, the finish line is in sight, there are no major roadblocks. But discipline? Discipline is a cold, mechanical system. It doesn't care if you slept poorly or if it's pouring rain outside. Motivation is basically like a sail on a boat. Yeah, it's great when the wind is blowing, but it's totally useless in a dead calm. Discipline is the engine. You just turn the key.
Every single person who has ever achieved something massively significant did it primarily through discipline, not motivation. Why? Well, because motivation always bails on you exactly when you need it most. When you're putting in crazy hours, when everyone is doubting you, and when nobody is clapping for you, a feeling isn't going to save you. Unstoppable people, they've built a system that literally does not require them to feel ready. It only requires showing up. It's exactly like flipping a light switch in your house. The electricity doesn't stop to ask if the light bulb is feeling inspired today. You close the circuit, boom, the light turns on. That's exactly how you have to treat your daily execution.
Now let's talk about how unstoppable people process failure. This is where that mechanical mindset really kicks into overdrive. For most folks out there, failure is taken as hard evidence, like definitive proof that they're not good enough, or their plan was stupid, or they never should have even tried. They attach their whole self-worth to that one outcome, and it just crushes them. But for an unstoppable person, failure is just data. That's it, completely stripped of emotion. It's just clinical information about what needs to be tweaked. Actually, scratch that. It's not even a bad thing. It's a diagnostic readout. It points right at the structural weakness so you can go in and fix it.
And look, you don't magically get this mindset by staring in the mirror doing daily affirmations. No way. You build it through raw, biological exposure. You experience the failure, you survive the failure, and then, this is the absolutely crucial part, you deliberately notice that it didn't destroy you. Every single time you walk through the fire and come out on the other side, your nervous system mechanically updates its threat assessment. Stuff that felt totally unsurvivable yesterday suddenly just feels manageable today. Unstoppable people aren't fearless superheroes. They've just survived enough to realize that the fear is almost always way bigger than the actual cost of failing. They've recalibrated their internal alarm system. Okay, this brings us to what I think is the psychological core of this whole explainer: the sheer power of identity over goals. Listen closely to this one. Most people try to become something by chasing it. Unstoppable people become something by deciding they already are that thing and then just acting like it. This isn't some woo-woo delusion. It's a proven psychological principle. Behavior follows identity way more reliably than identity follows behavior. See, when you're just pursuing a goal, you're constantly measuring the gap between where you are and where you want to be. It creates this permanent feeling of lacking. But when you adopt an identity, you just act like the person you've decided to be. An unstoppable person doesn't try to work hard. They are a hard worker. It sounds like a tiny shift in words, but man, the behavioral change it triggers in the real world is massive. So, to protect that new identity, these high performers build a fortress. Psychologists clinically refer to this as a secure internal locus of control. Fancy term, I know. But basically, it means having this rock-solid internal compass that can look at outside input without being thrown off balance by it. Your sense of direction comes from your own internal checks, not from whether people are giving you a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Now, this doesn't mean you become arrogant or completely ignore everyone else. It just means you aren't blown around by the wind of public opinion. When the world is screaming at you about who you're supposed to be, you check it against your compass. If it doesn't line up, you just quietly toss it in the trash. So how exactly do they process all those opinions? Literally like a machine sorting data. Step 1, collect. Step 2, evaluate strictly for usefulness. Step 3, decide. Most people either blindly accept every single criticism as absolute truth, or they get super defensive and reject everything out of pure ego. Both of those reactions actually hand over the steering wheel of your life to other people. Don't do that. The unstoppable person deliberately decides what's useful and what's garbage. Someone else's doubt isn't an existential threat, it's just an interesting little data point. It's a filter. You sift the gold out of the gravel and you leave the gravel behind. All right, shifting gears a bit. We really need to redefine how we look at physical and mental friction. Here's the absolute truth. Discomfort is the boundary of capability. Every single meaningful skill you could ever want to develop lives directly on the other side of sustained discomfort. And to be clear, we aren't talking about genuine pain or suffering here. We're talking about discomfort, that awkward, squirmy feeling of doing something hard, unfamiliar, and just a bit beyond your current skill level. Most people run away from that feeling the second it hits. But unstoppable people, they've trained themselves to see that exact feeling as a biological green light. It literally means growth is happening right now.
So how do you actually expand what you can do? Well, you have to actively move towards that uncomfortable feeling instead of dodging it. The edge of your comfort zone is the literal physical boundary of what you are capable of. Everything you want is sitting right on the other side of that line. And there is absolutely no cheat code here. The only way to claim it is to hang out in that uncomfortable zone, deliberately and consistently. You have to learn to just sit in the tension, breathe through the totally awkward phase of being a beginner, and push right through the exhaustion of testing a new limit. And why does this consistent, daily push matter so much? 2 words, 37 times. This is the math of the long game, folks. If you manage to get just 1% better every single day for a year, the compounding effect makes you 37 times better than where you started. 37! That kind of insane growth doesn't happen because of one massive, heroic movie montage effort. It happens because of the relentless, quiet compounding of tiny actions taken in the exact same direction day after day. It's the invisible accumulation of doing the work that eventually builds an insurmountable gap between you and everyone else. When you look at the long game, inconsistent effort just gives you a flat line. But that consistent 1% daily growth, that shoots up into an exponential curve. It's funny. Unstoppable people are rarely the fastest out of the gate. They just fundamentally understand that you can't build anything great overnight. The people who win over the long haul are almost never the most talented or the ones who had the most inspiration on day one. They are just the most consistent. An unstoppable person isn't doing anything super impressive on a random Tuesday. But they are absolutely extraordinary on that same Tuesday 3 years later, when everyone else who started with them has already quit. They simply outlasted the hype and survived the grind. Now, what about that inner voice of doubt, the one constantly telling you to just take a break or to quit? Look, it has always been there and it will always be there. The obstacles aren't going to vanish. The doubts aren't going to magically disappear. The unstoppable person just stopped listening to that voice like it had any real authority. Once you decide that voice is just ambient background noise instead of an actual instruction, everything changes. It's just sound in the room, nothing more. You have to build a relationship with your own consistency that is far, far more important to you than the fleeting comfort of giving up. The mission matters more than the moment. Which brings us to a final, defining truth. You do not become unstoppable by becoming someone different. You become unstoppable by deciding that stopping is simply no longer one of your available options.